It's a good morning to you. Welcome once again to Asake Online. My name is Zenzel Ndebele, and this is the breakfast. Sorry, I'm used to the Breakfast Club. This is Know Your Right. A program is normally that is brought to you by Brighton, but because of internet connections and other things, he is not able to join you today. So I'll be doing the program Know Your Right this morning. So forgive me when I say this is the Breakfast Club. I'm used to the Breakfast Club. We're done with the Breakfast Club. Now we are talking about Know Your Rights, where we look at the Constitution and some of the provisions that we think supposed to be implementing as Zimbabweans, and say, what does our Constitution say? A lot of things. In 2013, we came up with a new Constitution, which many people have said is a good Constitution, but the problem over the years has always been the implementation. So the program will be talking about devolution and other issues like that. To help us discuss this program, these issues, we have someone who's not new to many of you. We'll be talking to Ubabu Nkosana Moyo. We know him, he was the presidential candidate in 2018. And we want to hear more from him when it comes to issues of devolution. And for me, I want to start with the current situation and say he was active in politics, what he would have done. Babu Nkosana, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the opportunity to engage with your listeners and try to clarify our journey as a nation.
So let me start from 2018. I know you contested the presidential elections and things did not go the way you would have loved to. I mean, did you expect the results? You've moved on. If you had won, what would you have done better?
Well, we explained during the campaign that there are very few things that if you're serious about developing Zimbabwe, you have to do. You cannot expect Zimbabwe to do well when there is the kind of corruption we've got in this country. It's just not going to happen. You cannot expect Zimbabwe to develop and do well when you don't appoint people into jobs because they are capable of doing those jobs. Incidentally, starting with the voting itself, when you're electing people, whether it's the president or whether MPs, whether they are councillors, if you put people who've got no track record of having done anything that gives you confidence they can do the job, then don't be surprised if they're not capable of doing the job. So this issue of meritocracy, the issue of corruption, the issue of the size of the government, these are things we would have dealt with right up front. But right at the top of the list, we were always very clear, we're going to be a values-driven government. And that included being institutional, respecting our constitution, because it is the supreme law that should guide everything that we do. Now, if you don't do those things, you cannot expect to run a successful country. You cannot expect your society to be functional. And we always say this, people should have known what was coming by simply looking at the backgrounds of the people that they were giving the jobs to.
Yeah, I mean, I've always seen people on social media saying some of the things. I mean, people, when in times like this, people will go back and say, but Ubabu Moyo said in 2017, the current government will run the country better than Robert Mugabe. Do you still believe that?
No, so I say that Mnangagwa, true like anybody else, would run the country differently from Robert Mugabe because he's a different person. But if I believed he was capable of doing the right thing, I would have joined him. The fact that I contested against him should tell you, and I always said, I never believed that Mnangagwa could run this country as well as I could. But people didn't listen. Yeah, so I never said he was the right person. I said he would run the country differently from President Mugabe. And I've been proven to be right in that respect. But to be fair to a lot of Zimbabweans, I think you can kind of justify or at least understand that people thought he would run the country better because he should have learned from what happened during President Mugabe's time. But in fact, what we see is that he's doing exactly the same things because he was part of that team all along. That's all he knows.
You know,
which is why into a track record uyazi ukuthi nxa udinga umuntu ukuthi akwenzele umsebenzi, let's say you want a bank manager, you don't go and get somebody who was running a mine to become a bank manager. Ngoba he has never run a bank before. Uyabona? So that's why a track record is important. Ungathatha a miner and make them a bank manager, they will run the bank as if it was a mine. Because that's all they know. Mnangagwa knows how Mugabe ran this country because he was the inner part of that team. That's why we should not be surprised to see what he's doing. But I think my prediction that he would run the country differently is also true. He is actually worse than Mugabe. He's not better. He is not the same. He's not better. He's worse than Mugabe. So he's running the country differently.
Yeah, it's just 2 years since the new government took over, and we seem to be going nowhere. I mean, I know you talk to a lot of people.
No, we are going somewhere. We are going backwards, very fast.
So we are going backwards very fast. So talking to I mean different regional, international leaders, what do you think? What needs to be done right now? If you were to get the powers to change, what would you do?
Zenzele, before we go there, let's stay a little bit on what is going on in Zimbabwe and whether it's good or bad. My view is that if we as Zimbabweans, and I don't think we should be blaming ourselves about what happened, and I think we need to be mature enough to move on, and the critical bit is not so much that we collectively made a mistake. The critical bit is what it is we are learning. What lessons are we extracting from this experience in order to apply them next time around when we've got an opportunity to choose a leader? That is more important. If we continue to dwell on the mistake, then I think we lose an opportunity. The key issue in all our conversations should be, what should we extract as lessons? In many ways, my view is that having Mnangagwa actually may not be a bad thing if we are prepared to learn, so that we can apply the, you know what, in life, often even in business, mistakes often teach you much more than the things you do right. Provided you are open enough to learn, then the mistakes are of incredible value. So for us, we should challenge ourselves as a nation to say, okay, we are where we are, that is water under the bridge. But what are the lessons that are in this experience for us in order to apply them next time we've got an opportunity to choose a leader?
I remember you at a meeting that I attended in Joburg. I think that could have been 2017 or 2018. And you said the Zimbabweans, most politicians, I think you're talking about politicians, they don't want to change the system. They want to be part of it. I mean,
I was talking about Zimbabweans generally, not just politicians. The ordinary Zimbabwean, in my humble opinion, is like an animal farm. They say that they don't want the system, but actually they don't want the system. What they don't want is not running the system. So they want to be inside, being the people running the same system. In many ways, if you look back at our history and you go back to independence and look at how we've behaved post-independence after Ian Smith, all of the things that Ian Smith did to our people, we are doing them and even more. Which means you need to wake up to the fact that a lot of us were fighting not to change the system. We were fighting to be the ones controlling the system in order to be the Ian Smith of the day. That's what we wanted, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah, you know, just this morning I was looking at the tweets, and someone said I had actually put a question on Twitter to say, you know, for those who voted the MDC yesterday, I asked for those who voted ZANU-PF, what is it that you liked? And there were so many comments, and someone said, you know what, I liked Dr. Nkosana Moyo, but the problem is that he didn't have a team. I mean,
no, but what does that mean? What does that mean? Make me a chief executive, and I'll select the team. And a lot of good people, incidentally. A lot of good people will not join until you've been made the chief executive. And then you invite them to come to join, and they'll come, but not before you become the chief executive. So that is a self-defeating approach. People are very conservative. A lot of good people, both here and abroad, when you are in Mnangagwa, for instance, you've gone out and invited Zimbabweans who appear to be apolitical. As soon as he became president, they would have joined to come and save our country. So, but they will not come before. They just won't. Because part of their conservatism says, be careful because he may not win. So I'm not going to support something that may not work. But the minute the population chooses the right leader, you are giving that leader the capacity to be able to select the team. Yeah?
Yeah, one of the things that Zimbabweans have been talking about, not only Matabeleland, but many other regions, is the issue of marginalization. And the 2013 constitution talks a lot about devolution. You know, in your understanding, do you think devolution is the solution when it comes to marginalization?
You know what? Again, we need to be very careful in our thinking processes. I can guarantee you today that even if devolution is implemented by ZANU, it will never work. You know why? Because all the way down the system, ZANU will put its own people who are going to obey its orders. So in fact, it will be devolution without devolution. Devolution done properly should allow the local communities to be led by people they choose genuinely, people who represent the interests of the people. But if I'm the president and I sit on top of a country and I choose my own people who are going to do my bidding, I can devolve in theory, but in practice it will not, because all these people will be implementing my orders. So it will be devolution without substance. So people really need to understand this. Uguti devolution, which is done by ZANU, is worth nothing. It's worth zero. But you continue to be run by ZANU people who are destroying and stealing and doing all these bad things in the name of devolution. But even in Matabeleland, liyafakelwa abantu beZANU. Akusoze kube labantu who believe in representing the people. That's what will happen.
So sometimes, so basically what you are saying is that we can have all the systems that we want, but without the people-oriented leadership, there's nothing that will happen.
Absolutely. Look at our constitution again. Our constitution is not a bad constitution. It may not be perfect. Very few things are perfect, if any. But our constitution, if we implemented it, Zimbabwe would not be the same. In our constitution, human rights are there. Free and fair elections and frequent elections are there. Into a meritocracy is there. Into a anti-corruption behavior is all there. All of these things are there. Devolution, for a start, is there. Which of these things have been implemented? Which ones? But on paper, they are there. So until you get the right leader, these things will exist on paper, but they will never see the reality of day.
Yeah, you talk about the issue of election conduct and how elections are done. And every year, after every election, we get disputes. You participated in the elections. What are your observations? What do you think, how do you think the system works?
So here is the issue. Disputes are in many ways unavoidable in human life. But when you've got nothing to hide, you allow disputes to be resolved properly. Your behavior when there is a dispute tells you whether you've got something to hide or not. You understand? When there are disputes in a properly functioning society, you should allow those disputes to be properly investigated and resolved because you've got nothing to hide. But when you've got something to hide, your behavior will show what you don't want those disputes to be properly investigated. Yeah?
So we are going to 2023. There is another election coming. I mean, what are some of the things that you want to be put in place for people to have confidence in the system?
So let's go back to where you started this, when we started this interview was, or in fact, I think your program is called Know Your Rights. I mean, I think that is not a complete title. It should be Know Your Rights and Your Obligations. Tina, as a society, we are fixated on rights. But if you are very careful in analyzing, you will realize that rights derive from obligations. In other words, when you take your responsibilities seriously, implementation or execution in the space of your obligations creates your rights. I hope you understand this. So let's go back to the issue of elections. The electorate does not seem to understand its obligations in terms of what voting is all about. They sit there and they behave in a manner where they don't realize what the outcome of an election is dependent on their behavior. Starting with the issue of, do you understand what you want? Do you understand your obligation in making it happen? And you can't delegate it to somebody else. Mina, when I was campaigning, do you understand, Uti, when you vote for me, you're not doing me a favor. You should only vote for me if you think I'm going to do the right thing, because you are doing yourself a favor, and your children and your family. You understand? But Tina, because we are fixated on rights and the privileges, we think when you vote for Nkosana, you are doing him a favor, point number one. You're doing him a favor. And as a result, you expect him to do you a favor in return. Yeah? And then at the same time, we say we don't want corruption. We are confused. Because if you vote for me because you are doing me a favor, as opposed to because you think I can do the right thing, then you are being corrupt. And when I do you a favor by giving you a job you don't deserve, then I'm being corrupt. But we use these words and we don't understand what behavior here to actually is, where it provides the fertile soil for corruption. When you want me to come and buy you a t-shirt and have a rally so that I can feed you, and then you say, if you do that, then I'll vote for you. You are not voting for me because you think I can do the job. You are voting for me because I've done certain things for you. I've bought your vote actually. So we need to reconfigure our thinking, Uti. Our rights come out of obligations, which if we execute diligently, will automatically create the space for those rights. The starting point, however, is what are we as citizens responsible for? What are our obligations in creating an environment which will then support and protect the citizens' rights, because we've earned them through our behavior?
Yeah, you mentioned the issue of t-shirts, and I remember during your campaign, the meetings that I attended, whether they were press conferences or so, there is this question that kept on coming up. How come you're not producing t-shirts? How come you're not, giving people, doing rallies? There is this element of freebies among the Zimbabwean electorate.
I know. And I know, and this is a big issue that's why I'm saying, let's not get too negative about what is going on in this country, but let's force ourselves, if we can, to extract lessons. What have we learned? What is it we're going to do differently next time? I keep saying to people, I come from a very private sector background, and I keep saying to people, the owner of a company, and our company in this instance is Zimbabwe, it's our country, so we are the owners of the country. The owner of a company is the one who has to think through what job needs to be done before they advertise for the job. So if a company is going through difficulty, like our country is going through difficulty, the owners will sit down and say, what are the problems that the company is going through? And these problems need to be solved by somebody who has got what skills. Before they even advertise, they have to do that exercise. What are the problems? What skills would be appropriate for solving these problems? And only after that, they then write a job description. Before they interview anybody, they write a job description, and then they advertise using that job description, because we want this particular job done, therefore we are very clear about what kind of person we are looking for. Do you realize that the starting point is not the candidates who are applying for the job like candidates for president or whatever? The starting point are the citizens or the owners of the country getting clarity among themselves what the country needs at this point in time. If, let's say, a country is going through a phase where it requires its constitution to be revised, then you might look for somebody who has got skills in constitution making, who is therefore likely to be a lawyer with that constitutional background. You understand? Because we are looking at drafting a constitution, that's what we want, that's what we're going to look for, and that's the kind of employee we are going to select. But when a country is going through a phase where you're wanting to fix your economy, it cannot be the same kind of person as one you look for when you're wanting to write a constitution. It has to be a candidate with the background and skills which suit the job you're wanting done, i.e. fix the economy. But if we as the citizens don't realize what this is our responsibility, to have those conversations with the people around us, our friends and family, then we will continue to choose the wrong people because we are not taking on the responsibility. We just want to be given things, in other words, rights, but we're not recognizing our responsibility in making these things happen.
Yeah,
that's learning. So Tina, next time round, it is very unlikely that our economy will have been resolved by the time we get to 2023. My humble opinion is that we're going to be looking for the same kind of person to fix the economy, somebody who's got a track record which somewhere shows us Uguti, they can avoid into a corruption through what they've done before. Yeah, they've worked in finance, they've worked in industry, they've worked in investment, they understand all these things. And when you are then given a list of applications, i.e. candidates, you are able to screen them using that screen. Where is this individual coming from? What have they ever done? Why should I believe they can do this job? That's how we should be doing it. That's what we should be learning from this experience.
Yeah, you've really put it nicely. But also the other thing that I've noticed with the Zimbabwean electorate is the issue of parties. That people vote for parties rather than individuals. Did you experience that in your journey as
Absolutely, but in fact, I want to combine this particular element of the conversation and your question with the issue of devolution. Me, in my humble opinion, up to today, is that wherever there is an independent candidate, a good independent candidate, me, in my own choice would be the independent candidate. Because all things being equal, an independent candidate, if they're a good person, will have one allegiance only to the constituents, to the electorate. Party candidates, unfortunately, tend to put the party above the people. And again, our people don't seem to understand this. They rush to support parties. But when the people are elected, they don't care about the people, they care more about the party. Because the country is then run for the party and not for the country, not for the citizens. So if you're wanting devolution to give a chance to devolution working, I would say in every single locality, if you are given an option between a party candidate and an independent candidate, a good independent candidate, always vote for the independent candidate. The chances, it's not inevitable, but the chances are that independent people will pay attention to the people, not to some party because they don't belong to a party. And I think then you've got a much higher probability of devolution being implemented properly because these people are not being given orders by the head of state. They don't belong to that party, but they belong, by being independent, they belong to the people.
You raise quite interesting points, but looking at the system near Parliament in Zimbabwe, where we have the whipping system, and then at the end of the day, would they have any influence?
It's always about numbers. So if you end up with a significant number of independent MPs in that parliament, Whoever wants to form a government will probably then form a coalition with those independent MPs, which means the independent MPs will have leverage to influence what government can do or cannot do, because the government will need them. But these people will have the comfort of being able to negotiate totally independent without feeling good they want to be promoted by the head of government and what have you. They represent the people and they can negotiate for the people, for what they think is right for the people. It will still work.
Yeah, we have been talking about the Zimbabwean economy since 2000, and there seems to be nothing that is working. What do you think is the solution to this economic crisis that we're facing?
The solution is, you know what, it does not matter where you look. All the aspects of our challenges will only ever get solved when we get a good national leader. Nothing will come right for as long as the national leader is the wrong person. Nothing will come right, I can guarantee you. Not the implementation of our constitution, the functioning of our institutions, the fight against corruption, meritocracy, all of these things will not work for as long as we've got the wrong leader, because when we've got a leader who is self-serving, that leader wants people who listen to him or her, who are there to serve him or her, not to serve the people. So all our problems come down to choosing the wrong leader. Everything depends on that.
We are going to the next election in 2 or 3 years' time. Are you going to be contesting?
Well, it depends on whether my health will still be okay and whether my party thinks I'm the right candidate. We have to practice what we preach. If my health is not in a good place, and if my party thinks they can be a better candidate, then APA will find somewhere else. If they still think at that time that I'm the right candidate, then so let's put it this way. APA will contest those elections. Who the presidential candidate will be is still to be decided.
In the last 2 weeks or so, we have seen condemnation from all sectors, church and everywhere, about what is happening in Zimbabwe. And we have seen the hashtag Zimbabweans Lives Matter going international. What is the position of APA on these issues?
Well, again, let's go back all the way to the beginning. If you go back to 2017 when the coup happened, I think I'm not wrong in saying APA was the only party that already signaled a warning to the population that as people were getting euphoric and excited, they should try to ask themselves a couple of questions. In other words, one of the questions had to be, how did we get here? How did we get where we were when we were trying to oust Mugabe? And who was part of the movement that brought us to that point? And as we choose somebody to lead us forward from that position, are we sure we are taking the lessons of the past to make sure we've chosen the right person to lead us forward? We were the only party. And fortunately, with today's world, you can go back and check the statements we put out. So I'm not making it up. It's out there. And I will ask my SG actually to remind people that at that time when everybody was excited, we issued a warning or an admonition to Zimbabweans to say, stop and be a bit more careful. And then when the inauguration happened, virtually everybody rushed to it. Because again, our mentality is wanting to associate with power as opposed to be associated with the correct person and authority. We did not attend the inauguration because we could see that the likelihood of things going right was very low.
Let's say, you've already told us that APA is going to be contesting the 2013 elections, and 2023, not 2013. And looking at the 2013 constitution and the issue that we're talking about, devolution today, if you were to get in power, what are you going to do better when it comes to devolution?
On devolution?
Yes.
Devolution will be implemented, but again, my driving, what do you call it? What I would be wanting to achieve is a closer relationship between the administration of society and the people in that locality, because that should extract efficiency and a better link between what the people want and the ability of the administrators to listen more carefully to what the people want. You can better align what any particular society or community is looking for with the people who represent them. They are much closer. That's what devolution is supposed to achieve. A closer relationship between administration and the local people. That's what we would like to achieve. But I would have to also continue to point out, ultimately, each society has got a responsibility to choose, because that's your responsibility, to choose the correct representatives from within the community. You know the people best. And if you choose the wrong ones, they will always stuff up. They will always miss you. If you choose the correct ones, and you've got a head of state who is implementing devolution for the right reasons, then you're going to get a synergy of the correct intentions at national level and the correct capacity and understanding of the needs of the people at a local level. That's what you should achieve.
Yeah, we are quite clear on those issues. And lastly, as we conclude this program, I want to say, I mean, there is a lot that is happening in Zimbabwe, and like the Catholics bishops put it, and fear is running in people's minds. People are afraid that, I mean, fear of being the next victim, fear of losing a job, fear of not knowing what they're going to eat tomorrow. What do you think is the solution to our problems? What's the way forward?
Again, I'm going to sound like a broken record. There is only one solution. Choose the right national leader. So instead of us getting all bitter, what our investment should be today, intellectually and emotionally, is extracting lessons from the journey we've traveled and applying those lessons to the journey in front of us. So when we make choices in 2023, we need to have incredible clarity of what has happened in the past, how have we behaved and what have been the results, and what it is we need to change if we're expecting different results. And realizing that at the end of the day, the head of state is responsible for choosing people, sometimes rightly, sometimes wrongly, because I think some of the power actually should not be vested in the head of state. But the head of state is responsible for selecting the top team. And if the head of state's intentions are not correct, though that top team is going to be chosen on the wrong basis for them to serve not society, but to serve the head of state. And this is what we're experiencing. So our challenge to ourselves must be to learn these lessons and accept our own responsibilities with both hands and absolutely make sure that we carry them out. As we approach 2023, we must, most of us, all of us who are qualified to do so, must firstly register to vote. Secondly, we must do our own homework on every single candidate to see what kind of person they are, what information we have on them in terms of their track record. Should we be voting for them or not? We must make it our responsibility. Then we must turn up and vote in huge numbers to make the issue of rigging the election more difficult. Lastly, we must understand that protecting the vote is our responsibility. We should not be expecting somebody to pay us money. We should be volunteering to go and protect our vote. So the issue of a challenge of finding election agents should not exist, because once we understand we are protecting our vote and our interests and trying to create the world that's going to work for us and our children, this is our investment. We are not doing anybody a favor. Therefore, we must come in numbers to come and make this work. If we do these things right, I can almost guarantee the outcome of those elections will be very different, and the result will be protected.
Thank you very much, Babu Nkosana Moyo. We're talking about not only devolution, but the situation in our country and what we expect going forward. That was quite an informative peace, and you talk about critical issues. And I think throughout you talk about this sacrifice, that people should see that they are not doing anyone a favor, which I think is what lacks in our politics, because abantu bathi no mpatala ngibuye eralini, give me a t-shirt, pay me to be an agent. So it becomes a business of paying someone. You need to give me this for me to vote for you. You're already doing vote buying before you actually, and it's not guaranteed that the person we are going to pay or give money at a rally is going to vote for you. So those are some of the serious challenges that I think our society needs to address or talk about before we even get to the next election. That what's the use of a t-shirt? I mean,
absolutely.
Why? Yeah.
In many ways, one way of framing all of this is that I know people don't like to hear this, but what we've got at the moment is what we deserve because of our own behavior. We are reaping what we sowed. And if we sow a different kind of seed, we will reap a different kind of crop. So if we are clear about what kind of crop we want, we'll also understand what we need to reap, what we need to sow rather, in order to reap that. So our behavior must be consistent with what we want to see happen. What is happening now is consistent with how we behaved prior to the last election. And we are just getting the results which we deserve. But I just want again to stress, let's not fixate on feeling sorry for ourselves. Let's invest in understanding and extracting lessons and making sure that we apply those lessons to the opportunities that lie ahead of us.
The last question, there's someone who has sent a comment here, which I would like to read out, and then you can respond to it. He says, I'm not sure, it should be here. Why does APA Nkosana Moyo not consider joining hands with like-minded groups? You mentioned Dr. Noah Manyika. This game of politics is about numbers. They need a significant number of MPs and councillors to begin with to reform the rotten Zimbabwe political system.
You know, part of the challenge with this question is that, again, people don't understand. When you are building a team and you want a goalkeeper, you don't ask 2 people or 5 people to be goalkeepers to join forces. You look for the best goalkeeper you can get. So my view is that if you go back to that list of 23 presidential candidates, the challenge is yours as a citizen to choose one person who you think is the best candidate. And that person will then build a team. You empower that person to build a team. Don't force that person to go into some crazy coalition in advance. No, let the population choose. You see, again, this issue of rights and obligations. People are trying to duck an obligation. Your obligation is to do your homework and choose the right candidate for the job you want done today. Go back to that list of 23 candidates and look for somebody to fix any economy and tell me even today who that person is. Tell me whether you can come up with even 5 people. I don't think you can. So why are citizens ducking that responsibility? You choose.
So that's a clear sign that going to 2023, you are not going to be talking about coalitions with them.
No, because I think candidates, the elected should choose, we should learn to choose the best person for the job so that our relationship with that person is not confused. I've chosen you because I believe you are the best. You are now accountable to me. I'm not choosing a crowd to be accountable to me. I want you to know I chose you and you are accountable to me. Accountable. That word is important. Not would I did you a favor, no. I chose you because I thought you were the best candidate, but I'm going to hold you accountable to explain at every turn why it is you're not doing the things the way they should be done.
Babu, once again, Babu Nkosana Moyo, thank you for the program. And for those who just joined us, you were listening to Know Your Right, a program that is normally brought to you by Brighton. And today it was me, Zenzele Ndebele. We're talking to Dr. Nkosana Moyo, looking at the issue of devolution, our rights. And this is, I like it, say the program should be the rights and obligations. So from me, Zenzele Ndebele, from the program, the rights and obligations. Have a good day and let's meet again in other programs.
Thank you very much, and thank you to your listeners too for taking the time to engage.